What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of National Pastime. John and Toaster here as always, and today is Tuesday, July 27th, the day that all NFL teams will need to be reported to training camp, and the first day that players will be fined if they don't show up. And what do you know? Aaron Rodgers has shown up officially to Packers camp. We will discuss the reporting of his, I guess, supposed restructured deal that gives him an out after the season but keeps him in Green Bay for 2021. We'll discuss the fallout for teams that may have been vying for his services, like the Denver Broncos. We've got another Jets Gonna Jet segment because the Jets are always gonna jet. And we'll touch on a few other quarterbacks in the news, like number three overall pick, Trey Lance, who's still unsigned. And what do you know? Deshaun Watson has shown up to Texans camp and is still demanding a trade. So we'll get into some of the details there and what it means for the Texans, as well as any other team that might be vying for his services. So without further ado, here we go. All right, Toaster, it is Tuesday, July 27th. And Aaron Rodgers has officially reported to Packers training camp, avoiding his first $50,000 fine for not showing up. The talk
Meanwhile,
around
looking fine in those glasses, do I say so myself?
Oh, really? We're gonna give him credit for that because I think he looks like an idiot. But anyway, that's maybe just my Bears bias talking here. But apparently, Aaron Rodgers has come to an agreement with the Packers where they're going to restructure his current deal, more or less make it so that he gets to choose which team he's going to go to in the offseason. So he'll play out this season with the Packers as planned, quote-unquote, last dance with Davante Adams. And then the offseason in 2022, he will more or less get to choose his team. Now, we don't yet know the details. Nothing's been confirmed. There are no
details, so there's nothing to confirm at this point. There's still a lot up in the air other than he's avoided $50,000 in fines by showing up today.
Right, and to be fair, he's not the only player around the league that has shown up with no intention of really doing anything other than to not get fined. So
right, Chandler Jones, Xavier Howard, exactly. Right. Yep. The new Jamal CBA Adams basically requires them to show up because it's cost prohibitive for basically anybody except for somebody making Aaron Rodgers money to show up. So it is a little bit of advancement in this saga, but I wouldn't consider it over quite yet.
So do you think there's still the door is still open for him to be playing for somebody else this season, then, is what you're saying?
It's still open. I don't think it's likely. I think everybody sees what's in the tea leaves right now, and when they get the full last dance together, they're still looking for their Rodman, right? And that's what Randall Cobb's trade's going to be, even though I think the Jair Alexander would have been a better fit just based on, rebounding, blocking out, that sort of stuff. But all of this could go sour, and Rodgers still pulls the retirement card, and he never had leverage. And he still doesn't have leverage. So if he doesn't see what he wants, then I can see him pulling that card at a later date.
And the Randall Cobb situation is a little tough for them because his contract isn't like super friendly if they're trying to fit it in, right?
Yeah, because it's a Bill O'Brien contract, so it would never be team friendly.
Right. So essentially his cap number is 10.4. It looks like the Packers would be on the hook for $8.25 million, essentially. So, they've got to make some moves or restructure his deal if they're going to make that happen anyway. And there's been talk that Rodgers playing for the Packers and agreeing to play the season is contingent on a Cobb deal, which kind of seems pretty ridiculous. It just seems like Rodgers sort of, like you said, he doesn't really have leverage here given the 3 years left on his deal and everything.
But that may be his power play. That may be what he says he needs just to prove that it's not saying this is a good trade. It's not saying that this is going to put them over the top, but him saying, I actually have some power over this organization. And totally. I can see him, throwing his dick on the table and saying that this is what it's going to take to get me back. Understand it's going to take a little time to work out, so I'll show up in the meantime. And if the deal gets done, great. The catch-22 of this entire situation, though, is that any deal that they make with Rodgers right now to kick money down the road is going to make it even harder for them to trade him in the future.
Yeah, and I guess that's where we're just all still in a holding pattern a little bit to see what exactly the concessions are and what the contract looks like. Because, I mean, essentially, if they come to an agreement with him where they essentially remove... Anyway, what's been reported so far, right, is that they'll remove the 2023 year from his deal, and something will be in the new deal where whether it's an insane roster bonus or whatever, but they'll trade him in the 2022 offseason. But
I think they said they'll assess the situation in the 2022 offseason. So I guess that means if they win a Super Bowl with their big three, then maybe he'll come back. But ultimately, nothing's been done. Nothing is finalized. So I think that we're actually not in any different situation than we would be had he retired, had he held out. The only thing is that with the way the CBA is structured, it made more sense for him to report than to not report.
Is there any scenario here where he still retires and he's just shown up to camp to give himself a little bit more time and avoid the fines until he makes that decision?
Yeah, I think that's definitely in play, because what he's done is not only has he avoided the fines, but he's also made himself more viable as a trade partner in saying, I've been getting reps in. So if somebody wants to move him 2 weeks from now, they can say, it's not like he was sitting in his couch or, looking at fucking volcanoes in Hawaii. He was actually there completing passes, hitting his wide receivers, working on timing, all these things that he needs to do to show that the insane trade value that he would actually have is worth it.
Yeah. So let's just assume that he plays for them this year. There's no question that, talent-wise on the field, the Packers are in that conversation once again to be contending for, the crown in the NFC and a Super Bowl berth. But how much has this situation just fucked up the culture of that team and that locker room? Do you think that matters when you have somebody like an Aaron Rodgers, I guess, back there? Because in any other scenario, you would think this is going to be such a dysfunctional group that for them to get to 13-3, or let's say 14-3 this year and make it to the NFC Championship game again, I mean, that would be a miracle, just given all the mental gymnastics that they're going through or have gone through all offseason, right?
Yeah, I think it only affects the superstars, because the NFL is a league of the haves and the have-nots, and everybody's vying for that position. So it may affect your Devonta Adams, it may affect your Zadarius Smiths, it may affect your Aaron Rodgers, but beyond that, it's going to be, this is an opportunity to win, and I want to be there, and I'll deal with the shit. I mean, the Jets are still an organization, right?
Barely. I mean, if you can call them that, yes. I think the real tragedy in all of this is that Blake Bortles has been released as of today. R.I.P. to Blakey B. Hopefully he catches on somewhere else. But I was really hoping for a Blake Bortles, Jordan Love camp battle. And the fact that we're deprived of that now just makes me hate Aaron Rodgers even more, honestly.
Yeah, and it's kind of shocking to me that they picked letting him go over Daladega, because it's just like, what do we actually think that we're doing with that guy, right? Like, at least take somebody that he's made it to he's lost a conference championship game. Aaron Rodgers has lost 4 conference championship games. Tom Brady's lost 4 conference championship games. Like, they're basically all on the same tier right now.
Well, maybe the only thing that seems to make sense to me there is Blake's a veteran and they're doing him a solid by giving him a chance to stick on somewhere else. But given what we've seen from this organization, them doing a vet a solid, Blake would be the first guy that's received that with the way that Aaron's been treated, Devontae Adams, and now Preston Smith is also pissed off about his deal. So I guess good on them. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here in saying that they're trying to help Blake. But yeah, anyway, poor Blake.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's helping Blake, but he does have two teams in the Jets and the Eagles that are probably decent opportunities to latch on to and provide a veteran experience. But what I would have seen out of the Packers is why not try to trade him for, again, a 7th round draft pick?
Yeah.
What's the harm there?
Yeah, at least give it a shot. Maybe they tried and nobody was biting, but
because they weren't going to keep 4 quarterbacks on their roster. Yeah, I guess it's probably not a great strategy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so you mentioned the Jets. The Jets. So here we go with our favorite recurring segment, Jets Gonna Jet. But Zach Wilson, number 2 overall pick in this year's draft, quarterback from BYU. He still hasn't signed his deal, and he has not reported to camp. The apparent impasse here is that there's still conversations, negotiation over a cash flow deal for the Jets. The Jets are basically looking to push out guaranteed money. Does that sound right? That basically they don't want to pay him his signing bonus this year.
So his contract as a top 2 pick is fully guaranteed. The only thing that's not basically written into the CBA structure is offset language and when his bonus payouts are paid. So I think something along the lines of like $22.9 million in signing bonus, and technically that's up for the club to divvy amongst the years as they see fit. Exactly. Yeah. So very little room for negotiation and very little room for the Jets to actually proceed in training camp because they don't have a quarterback that's thrown an NFL pass on their roster right now.
Yeah, which leads you to, you speculated Blake Bortles there. I mean, few other, I guess, trade targets for them. Nick Foles has made sense since the beginning of it, really since the Bears traded up for Justin Fields. And, it probably wouldn't cost more than a 7th round pick to get him. I would think you just have to take on his $6 million salary. Gardner Minshew, does he make sense for them potentially? I mean, I know he's famously said that he hasn't taken a shit in weeks because number 2 isn't an option for him, which, God, you got to fucking love Gardner Minshew. But, is he possibly an option
BJ's
for
got
them?
him on speed dial, just waiting for that day that he's ready for a release. No, I don't think that he's an option because there's no way that he's not a number 2 in New York. And it's the same exact persona. Obviously, Zach Wilson's put a little bit more game film on tape in college to prove that he's probably a level above Gardner Minshew, but there's no
Trevor
way
Lawrence, you mean?
No, Gardner Minshew. There's no way that Gardner Minshew is going to the Jets and then starting over Zach Wilson.
I mean, I don't know. I think you put them in a camp battle together. I would bet Gardner Minshew beats him out.
I would too, because I'm not that high on Zach Wilson, but from a Jets gonna Jet standpoint, there's no way that they're not starting. Well, I guess they don't actually have the quarterback under contract, so that's also something to be clear. This is not a holdout. He's not under contract, so he's not subject to $50,000 fines a day, and he's actually not under losing a potential season, accrued season, because he has not signed his contract yet. This is not technically a holdout, but I just can't see Gardner seeing that in the works as being something that's viable if he's worried about being number 2, because is he going to leave the number 1 overall draft pick to go to the team with the number 2 overall draft pick? That's not you already say it wasn't going number 2, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess really, do you see the Jets swinging a deal here then and picking up any veteran somewhere, or are they just going to roll with James Morgan and whoever else is on that roster right now like you said, there's very few things that are up for negotiation right now with these rookie deals. I mean, Zach Wilson will be there. It's just a matter of when. And, but is him missing a week of camp reps, is that valuable enough?
Well, that's what I don't understand. So there's the worry with all of these general managers is setting a precedent. And right now you're setting a precedent of drafting a quarterback in the top 3 within the 4 years of each other. That's the wrong precedent to set. So giving him what he wants in his deal is something that you better damn hope is never coming up again. The thing is, when is the contract being paid out, which is something that quite frankly doesn't matter to the teams because it's not ultimately the money's there. They're going to be spending
except for the cash flow issue though. And that's a piece of this. I guess the Jets are trying to maintain whatever that dollar amount is for Zach Wilson for this year. They're apparently so cash strapped that they're trying to push that out a little bit. So that is a piece of it outside of the offset language.
So no, it definitely is. But what I'm saying is you are going to be paying that money regardless. It is a guaranteed $32-ish million contract. So the cash flow is impactful and the offset language is impactful. And obviously the cash flow works into the offset if they kick it down the road. But if you're so concerned, the offset language only comes into play if you cut the
move on from him.
You cut them. You can trade them. You can do whatever the fuck you want with them. It only matters if you cut him. So are you so damn worried about your number 2 overall draft pick when you had 3 other quarterbacks that were top 15 picks on the board that you're going to say, I don't want to set a precedent and not have offset language in this contract? Because guess what? If you cut him, he's not signing something for more than a $2.5 million contract like Trubisky signed. So yeah. Are you trying to save $2.5 million now to not have the face of your franchise in your camp day one and get down to business?
But even then they knew that they wanted to move on from Sam Darnold and were still able to get draft capital for him. I would assume that there's no way Zach Wilson is going to be as bad as Darnold looked for 3 years, possibly.
And again, even the offset language wouldn't come into play in that point,
right?
Because you're just changing the contract terms to him. Maybe then the bonus structure, the guaranteed structure, does come into play because the team that's trading for him is on the hook for more cash than they wanted to be. But at the same time, he is getting paid that amount. But
that's my point. That's my point. You're not cutting him. If you got something for Sam Darnold, you will be able to get something for Zach Wilson if and when you do decide to move on from him. So yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
We're talking about $32 million when there's 7 teams in the league that are paying their quarterback that on an annual basis, and you're getting this guy under cost controlled contract for 4 years. So Buck the fuck up, sign him, and just say whatever you want, you get. And this isn't a precedent. Are you a number 2 overall draft pick? Are you a quarterback? No. Then you're not getting the same contract that Zach Wilson got. I am sorry.
Yep.
There's no precedent to set.
I agree. Bottom line.
And it's a position that's not absolved of injury risk, but the lowest injury risk on the fucking playing field. So I can see, like when Joey Bosa was going through the same conversation, how many games does he miss now? Because he's in a position where he is going contact on contact, mano a mano, every single fucking play. Injuries happen. Zach Wilson, I mean, he's going to get touched more than 10 times a game just because it's the Jets. But if, in theory, he should be the most protected person in that organization outside of, I guess, the kicker and the punter.
Yep, absolutely.
Actually, that's not true. The punter probably has more opportunities to get hit than the Jets quarterback.
Yeah, the punter's, I think, a little more protected.
I just meant because they're punting so fucking much. So if he's only expecting to get hit 10 times a game and they're punting 12 times a game, punter's also at risk.
Yep. Yeah, watch your back, Jets punter, whoever you are.
But yeah, when you're talking about a quarterback, it's completely different than any other position on the field. So this offset language and this guaranteed money structure, if how are you so concerned that he's going to flame out that fast? You gave Darnold 3 years before you moved on from him, right? So you're not going to give this guy 3 years before you move on from him too.
Yeah. Bottom line, Toaster, is that the Jets are going to jet, and that's why we're here right now. So, moving on. I guess that tied somewhat to the Rodgers situation, right, is the fallout for other teams, and I'm thinking specifically about the Broncos. So today, reports came out that, or Vic Fangio said that Drew Lock will get the first crack at first team reps, but the rest between him and Teddy Bridgewater will essentially be split 50-50 over the course of camp, and each of them will get a chance to start a preseason game. I know how you feel about Teddy Bridgewater and, well, how you feel about this competition. You think Teddy should win it, and I agree that he should win it as well. But the Broncos, where does this put them now that it looks like Rodgers isn't in the cards for them this year?
Well, there's still another quarterback out there who shall not be named that they could potentially vie for, but ultimately it puts them in a position where they're third or fourth in the AFC West, and they can't go beyond that. They're just not going to get there. Earlier in our pods, I talked about Teddy Bridgewater actually having one of the surprise seasons and potentially way outplaying what his expectations are, but that doesn't change the win total enough to make them viable to win that division.
So you still think that you would put the Chargers ahead, obviously the Chiefs, but the Chargers ahead of them right now for sure?
I mean, yeah, Herbert almost beat Mahomes in his first NFL start on 10 minutes of game notice. I don't know if he was behind the injection or not, but, he showed up, he balled out, and they lost by, 3 points on, again, no notice. And now you're getting there's two things that are happening. The Chargers are constantly hurt by injuries. So getting Darwin James back is a huge, and hopefully he's back for longer than like a second, a hard knock second. But I'm so high on Staley. I think that once they get a coach that actually manages the game, they're going to be, I mean, we went over this. They lost 7 of 9 of their losses last year by 1 score, and 3 of those losses were by less than 3. So
with a rookie quarterback who admittedly played great, but a rookie quarterback and a terrible offensive line. The fact that they were in the games that they were last year was pretty impressive. And I agree with you that I think the Chargers are number 2. The Broncos just have such a complete roster outside of
They're
the
missing
quarterback
a quarterback. And if Teddy Bridgewater can be that perfect bridge quarterback, then they stand an opportunity. I just don't think that they're going to, now that there's a 7th playoff position, maybe they stand a chance of vying for the end. But you're talking about 2 games against the Chargers, 2 games against the Chiefs, and even 2 games against the Raiders is no pushover. Yeah. So the fact that division is so tough makes it difficult for Bridgewater to succeed, and quite frankly, I'm concerned that just because of the draft pedigree of Drew Lock, he gets a shot over Bridgewater.
I'm 100% in agreement with you there. I think they've seen enough flashes from Drew Lock, and maybe Vic Fangio doesn't buy into this, but if John Elway still has his hands on the day-to-day of this team at all, then I think Elway's going to want to see this through with Drew Lock, at least through his 4th year. And I agree. I think the draft pedigree is gonna keep him there. Now, I guess my next question for you is, next offseason, assuming Rodgers is moving on from the Packers and calling a shot where he wants to go, are the Broncos still the team for him? Are they still the team that you think he ultimately ends up on?
Broncos have to go all in. That's Elway's style. It's going to get him a 2nd Super Bowl potentially. Peyton Manning style. I know Eli actually got 2. Fuck him. But that roster right now, as it's constructed, I mean, you've still got the Von Miller situation to figure out post this year. But I think that they put a team together to make it happen, because that's your instant shot at a run. We did our QB rankings earlier this year, Aaron Rodgers puts you right in that automatic contender category, and you're not going to get that anywhere else.
For sure. I do want to correct you here. John Elway did win 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, 1 as a player and 1. No, I'm kidding. He won 2 as a player.
98, 99, and then with Peyton Manning with the Broncos. So technically he's got 3 if you're counting him as an executive. But the point doesn't change for you there. And I agree. Rodgers, he needs to go all in, right? This is what you do. You've built this great roster. You are a quarterback away, which a lot of teams, I guess, are a quarterback away from contention. But, I mean, this vaults you. You get Rodgers, that vaults you into the top 3, of the entire league, I would think, with the roster that they have around him there, the receiving core, the defense, so and Vic Fangio as a coach. I agree. I think they need to go all in. It just becomes a matter of if Rodgers is given his chance to pick his team now, and they're not the Packers maybe aren't as limited in a sense, and another offseason goes by and maybe another team makes enough moves to put themselves in contention where Rodgers sees it as a viable option.
Maybe the Raiders fire Gruden and they say, Rodgers, you can pick your coach.
Yeah. Yep.
Mike
100%.
McCarthy to the Raiders.
Yeah, right. Oh, God.
But no, I mean, just back to that, it just is the unknowing of these contract concessions for Aaron Rodgers are why I'm still putting an asterisk on whether or not this season. I think he will play out the season at this point with Green Bay, but there's going to be a lot of work as far as how that contract's restructured and what guarantees he ultimately has in his future down the road to make him satisfied to play out the season.
Yep, agreed. It's funny. It's like feels like the whole offseason's been on hold because of these certain quarterbacks, the Deshaun Watsons, the Russell Wilsons, and Aaron Rodgers making their decisions. And now Rodgers has showed up to camp, but we're kind of still on hold to some degree because we don't know what's happening.
He technically still hasn't practiced with them. I mean, practice wasn't scheduled to start until Wednesday, but he technically has not practiced with them.
Yes, very true. So, all right, well, we'll see what happens there. But definitely Rodgers showing up to camp appears to be a huge blow to the Broncos and their chances. Now, I saw somebody float this on Twitter. How much did Rodgers, the leak on draft day that he was available, right? And, was in talks with the 49ers and all this stuff. How much did that affect the Broncos' draft strategy? Would they have taken Justin Fields at 9 if Rodgers didn't seem like a possibility to them at the time?
I can't be certain, but
Nice.
I don't. They would be absolutely stupid to have been banking on that. Worst case, you've got draft capital to trade Fields to the Bears, the Vikings, potentially the Eagles, the Giants. You take the asset that has the most trade value at that point, and that would have been Justin Fields. So regardless,
the one that you can acquire.
Exactly.
Is the key.
And so you hedge your bets and you say, we've got this as a backup and Justin Fields is an unknown. But if it takes 3 future first rounders to get Aaron Rodgers away from the Packers, then I get 2 future first rounders back for Justin Fields.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me.
I'm not gonna say it didn't have anything to do with it, but it would be a very poor position for the Broncos to put themselves in. And I mean, that's beyond the day-to-day, to quote the Office. Elway has elevated himself above those types of decisions, so he's not involved in those anymore because he's VP of all things, not everything football. But
it's George Payton's problem now.
Exactly. Sorry, I got promoted by doing shitty. But guess what? I made this fucking city, so you're welcome.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a lifetime pass no matter what.
Exactly, but that would have been a very poor decision because you're your best draft asset. You're not trading Surtain for multiple first round draft picks. I mean, he's not a fucking Jamal Adams safety. Like, you can't get that kind of return for a cornerback. But you can for a quarterback, and they should have taken Fields. I still am dumbfounded the fact that they passed on him. Can somewhat understand the Panthers passing on him just because they were high on Darnold. I don't think it was a great decision either. But the fact that the Bears were able to make this happen, the Broncos could have flipped him for the same exact price if they wanted to get Rodgers at a later date.
Well, yeah, exactly. Why not take Fields, and then he's your big trade chip for Rodgers, and you don't have to give up as much, right? Yeah. You've maybe flipped Fields and a 1 or something, right? And
I was going to assume at this point that the Packers were going to say, we're into Jordan Love, we're going to go all in on him, and so you're flipping Justin Fields to another team. But what I'm saying is the Bears would have been desperate enough to still flip 2 future first rounders, so not even 2020 draft picks. 2021 draft picks. It would have been 2022 and 2023. And who knows if Pace and Nagy are still even there at that point, right? That's playing with house money. So you would have been able to get that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Broncos fucked up. Maybe it all works out for them in the end and they get Rodgers next offseason. But as of right now, they feel like the biggest loser, to me anyway, from this definitely, quote-unquote resolution.
Right.
Yeah, that we've seen.
Yep.
Moving on to another draft, first-round draft pick quarterback from this year. Not a ton to necessarily talk about here, but Trey Lance still hasn't signed with the 49ers. Elway was quoted today saying, John Lynch was quoted today saying that
they both played for the Broncos.
Yeah, fucked me up. But he was saying that they're hopeful that Lance will sign soon. Quote, "We've never had a holdout, but it always seems to go down to the wire. It's important he is here, as it is for any rookie, but particularly for the quarterback." So what do you make of the Trey Lance holdout? It seems odd to me that they would trade everything that they traded up to get him, have so much conviction in taking him, and then still be at an impasse with this contract situation. Again, we're only talking about really one thing here, which is offset language.
I mean, the trade, the draft capital they gave up, that's all in the past. At this point, he is their security for 1 year. And what I ultimately believe is Trey Lance is holding out to see how much Zach Wilson's able to pry out of the Jets and set that, as we talked about, precedent. That's his precedent for the 49ers because he's not in a position where every day of camp he misses a day of potential game activity that he's missing because they're still holding pat that Jimmy Garoppolo is QB1 and Trey Lance is QB2. So he doesn't need to be there on day one, or at least him not being there day one will not have the same impact on the 49ers as it would on the Jets. And this is just him trying to get as much out of it as he can. But again, if you're worried about the offset language on a top 3 QB pick, then that you ultimately gave up 2 first-round draft picks for, then you're probably a little bit off base on what you're expecting out of him.
Yeah, it just seems it's so straightforward now. And, you brought up the Joey Bosa example, which I think is a good example because you're talking about another high-profile player that was picked really high, and he went into a holdout. But, again, we're talking about a quarterback here. This is different, and this is a guy that you're not really expecting to get hurt, I would think. So you don't need to worry about that. And, again, you traded, you essentially you
mortgaged your future for this guy.
Yeah, regardless of the semantics of how many first-round picks you traded for, you know what I mean? 49ers right. Fans like to argue that, but you mortgaged your next handful of first-round picks for this guy. It seems to me that it's a no-brainer. You just agree to what he wants, and it's not really going to affect you. Like, the chances of what he wants affecting you from an offset language standpoint or whatever is ridiculous.
So slim. Yeah. I just want to comment that you must have small hands if you can only hold 2 picks in there. So I can hold at least 4, maybe 5 in my hand. But no, to your point, the precedent, again, the quarterback is completely differently looked at. And what I ultimately hope this leads to is the elimination of offset language, because I think it's an unfair competitive advantage. So don't look at necessarily the quarterbacks that we're talking about right now, but think of Le'Veon Bell. He signed a contract with the New York Jets, which had offset language in it, which basically meant when he was released, he was guaranteed $8 million.
Yeah.
He was going to get
from somebody.
$6 million. He was guaranteed $6 million in total. And so he went and signed a bare minimum contract for the Chiefs, and they paid him 2. The Jets paid the rest. It just creates an imbalance, because I feel like even if that offset language is there, the cap hit should be the same for the acquiring team. But instead, the Chiefs were getting basically a veteran minimum contract for a player that was on a contract that clearly reflected they were not veteran minimum, and there's no risk to the acquiring team.
Yep, for sure.
And if they just take that out of there, then most of these, again, they're not holdouts, but contract impasses are going to go away.
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head when the Niners report to camp? Are they reporting?
Everybody reported the 27th. So
okay, so everybody's officially in camp today.
Everybody's officially in camp today, and just want to do a shout out. There is actually a league-wide event on Saturday. All 32 training camps will be broadcast on NFL Network live. So if you're bored on a Saturday, you will get an insight into every single training camp on Saturday. Everybody's committed to being not only filmed but practicing that day.
Oh, well, hey, NFL Network, if your ratings go up by a handful, then more than expected, just make sure you don't forget
Remember,
us.
Your bread is buttered.
Exactly. All right. Well, we'll get out of here on one last quarterback that we mentioned briefly earlier, but Deshaun Watson. He's shown up to Texans camp. He's still requesting a trade. He still hasn't been put on the commissioner's exempt list, and he still has several pending lawsuits, a bunch of which now are, I guess, becoming criminal suits.
Yeah, 10 of them are criminal, and 2 of those criminal are not part of the original 22.
Yeah. But the NFL obviously has been monitoring the situation. They haven't put him on the exempt list, which seems irresponsible to me. And, a lot of people have been talking in the last couple of days that what does his trade market look like now? The Texans are still fielding offers for him. They're expecting 3 first-rounders. Is a team willing to give that up? All of that's... It feels irresponsible to me to talk about his football status too much, given everything else that's happening. I mean, you're more in tune to this stuff than I am, but how realistic
Sexual
is it that
assault?
he's...
No.
Well, no. I mean, the semantics of the legal stuff. How realistic is it that he would actually be able to play this season?
So what I think by not putting him on the commissioner's exempt list prior to the start of training camp means essentially eliminates the commissioner's exempt list from the possibility of occurring this season, short of them claiming they have new evidence, which might be the reason that they have not interviewed Deshaun Watson yet. And it's actually part of the process that they typically investigate the claimants last, and there's still an ongoing police matter, so that could be an opportunity. But I would say the irresponsibility is on putting him not putting him on the commissioner's exempt list, because I think the PR fallout of putting him on the commissioner's exempt list prior to the start of the season, but not prior to the start of training camp, would look very bad from a PR perspective for the league. What I do want to also throw out there, though, is this is a nation of innocent until proven guilty. And so you can look at this in a positive aspect that says, think about any employer. Like, think about the Frank Clark situation where, yes, he's under investigation right now. Nothing's happened. No other employer would impart discipline upon their player or upon their employee prior to getting the full investigation. And, that most corporations are not actively investigating this. They're going to let it play out in the legal system. The NFL is in a unique situation where everything's public, so they kind of have to play both sides of it. But what I think it ultimately means is he either needs to be suspended by week 1, not on the commissioner's exempt list, actually imparting discipline, saying this was the result of our investigation. But that puts them in a predicament, because that's what they did with the Ray Rice situation. And then additional details came out afterwards, and then
they looked stupid.
A shitstorm for the league. And then the other opportunity is to let him play out and go on the innocent until proven guilty standpoint, and then say, okay, now that we've collected our evidence, now that things have gone through the court system, which again, they won't go through the court system until after the Super Bowl next year. So it is a long, drawn out process for that resolution to happen. I think he's untouchable right now. At least I would have him untouchable, regardless of if I was the Broncos and thinking I was only one quarterback away and maybe I can get one season out of him before I have to, accept the consequences of that discipline. And again, he's 25, 26 at this point. So you say, okay, well, he's under contract for an extended period of time. We can take that hit down the road. But right now, I agree with you. It's irresponsible to talk about his his trade
compensation.
Return. Yeah. But I can look at both sides of the story there. That I do appreciate that his innocent until proven guilty standpoint is still out there, because there have been false claims, not probably up to the point of 22 false claims, which is why you would think he would have been placed on the commissioner's exempt list just because of the pure volume of what's going on. But the league's going to be in a perilous situation now that he's reporting. And ironically, this is exactly what the CBA wanted. They wanted Watson to report. They wanted Xavier Howard to report. They wanted Aaron Rodgers to report. They wanted Chandler Jones to report. And now they have that. And this is the situation that they're dealt with.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about innocent until proven guilty, but I don't think that the commissioner's exempt list is an admission of guilt necessarily, or the league levying any sort of judgment. I think it's them just removing it from conversation, right? From the spotlight. He's not going to be in camp. He's not going to be throwing passes. He's not going to be on camera. There's not going to be trade speculation. There's not going to be speculation of whether he's going to start for the Texans this year, because all of that is, whether you're giving him, I guess, the benefit of the doubt of being innocent until proven guilty or not, is it's frankly unfair to the victims here in this case, and or I guess the plaintiffs in this case. And it just seems like the league has just fumbled this situation away terribly, and it sucks that we're even talking about this right now. But he's one of the best players in the league and in a very interesting situation, so we almost have to. But very
interesting.
strange.
It would be interesting to understand the internal conversations between the league and the Texans, because I would almost assure you that the Texans did not want him placed on the commissioner's exempt list, because that ruined all value that he would have in a potential trade. And then if the league could come out and say, okay, well, we won't put him on now. We can put him on at a later date. See what you can work out here. It's a business, and that's what is the biggest downside of all of this. Is it's what maintains the most money in the league's coffers.
And that, as always, is the only thing the NFL cares about. unfortunately.
Yep.
But
no.
all
So
right.
I don't expect a resolution on this criminally or civilly soon, and I don't expect a resolution on this from a
The league standpoint.
anytime soon either.
Well, it's unfortunate, but all right. Well, we will leave on that note. Thanks as always for listening, everybody. Just want to remind you, if you are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that you get your podcasts, that we are posting all of our episodes to YouTube. So please go to our YouTube page, National Pastimes, where you can find us, and subscribe. And we will be posting full episodes, but then also clipping sections out. Make sure you share with your friends. Let everybody know that you are I guess we don't have a name yet for our listeners, do we? We're gonna have to workshop that one.
We're gonna have to contact all 12 of them and ask what they want to be. What they want to be called.
Yeah. I guess that's true. We can just kind of crowdsource it. Shouldn't be that hard. But yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you later.